A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. Being a Friday, it's a day when we review the major events of the week. Now, this week has been indeed eventful. Why? We had two major events on our political calendar. One of them was President Yoweri Museveni being sworn in as, a president of the Republic. When he finishes these 5 years, he will have served this country for 45 years. Now, in his address, the president talked about two main things that caught the attention of the public: the issue of not sleeping over poverty and corruption. He says during this Kisanja, during this term, there will be a lot of focus on those two areas. Now, of course, people have been discussing this statement and wondering whether he will be able to deliver on this particular issue, because some people have been saying that, look, he has said this before and nothing has changed. We'll be looking at this in detail to understand how our country will be shaping up over the next 5 years. We also saw the swearing in of the MPs to the 12th Parliament, and it was a 3-day, and it ended today. But not for some people. There are two constituencies where he has not been swearing in. One, we know Kalangala district lost its MP-elect, the late Honorable Helen Nachimuli. There will be a by-election in that particular district. And for unknown reason, Bukuya County MP-elect, that is in Kasanda district, Dr. Michael Yigabu Kenya, did not take oath. But this has happened before, and we know going forward, when Parliament is sitting, he will be sworn in. And the first sitting of this House will be 10 days from today, the 25th of this particular month. And the first agenda is always to elect the Speaker. And, of course, we know the race has become hot. It's at a critical stage. There are so many things that are being spoken about in public corridors, but also on social media. We'll be digging deeper into all those issues to see how our 12th Parliament will shape. What kind of Parliament do we deserve, and the leadership therein. A panel of 4. The Honorable George Musisi, Chira Municipality MP, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party. George, congratulations on your swearing in. We have seen you grow from being a NUP lawyer to aspirant.
Did you start as a foot soldier?
Now, member of Parliament, from being MP-elect to Member of Parliament. Congratulations.
Thank you. And like you rightly mentioned, on 25th we are going to be electing a speaker. Who knows, I might be right honorable by the next time.
You might be right honorable.
Good evening, the listeners.
All right,
yeah, you told me you were gearing for Prime Minister.
Yeah, same for Biabakama announcing different things. But we continue with the hopes and struggles.
All right. Our second guest, the Honorable Patrick Kichoncho Katabazi, Ruchiga County MP, economist, lawyer, NRM member. Honorable Patrick Kichoncho Katabazi has also been regular on Spectrum here, talking issues of economics, but also social protection. He's one of those people who has been vocal on the issues of social protection. We also saw you as an economist, lawyer, aspirant, now member of Parliament. Congratulations, Honorable Patrick Katabazi.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and good evening to our listeners.
All right. Also in studio, Mr. Godwin Toko, lawyer, civil society activist. He works with the Agora Center for Research. These are the people who have been shaking the tables. But you've been amusing past tense.
He worked.
No, I said actually he works. Okay. He works with Agora.
I can confirm that it is wax.
Yeah, that's what I said. Well, as I said, it's good to have you, Mr. Toko.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. It's been a while, and I'm glad to be back.
The usual suspect. You can hear his mischievous laugh. Mr. Leonard Egesa, a political and business strategist. Good evening, Egesa. It's a pleasure having you on Spectrum Extra.
Good evening, Kenneth. Good evening, my fellow panelists. And good evening to the listeners and viewers. Just like I've said, he has grown with the Spectrum. He has grown with Spectrum. You never know, I might also grow with the Spectrum.
Let me see, you might become director of ISO or what?
The other thing is that the number of politicians who in this town who need Egesa's political strategy. I know he's a master in crisis management, so he might be in business.
The number just spiked.
He's in season.
Your outgoing speaker will not get pro bono services, which I offered 2 years ago.
who is the outgoing speaker? We reached that level. But anyway, gentlemen, like I said at the beginning, this week has been very eventful on the issue as far as governance and politics of this country is concerned. Those two major events closely linked because one leads to another. We had President swearing in and we've had the MP swearing in. But the biggest discussion is about where this country will be heading in the next 5 years, looking at two major key players in this particular arena, that is the President and the Parliament, which is also a key factor in our politics. But let's begin very quickly with the President. And I want to begin with Mr. Toko. The President was sworn in, and then he made those famous statements about the fight against corruption, poverty, which by far are some of the major challenges that this country continues to grapple with. And we want to hear from you. What are your quick thoughts on the statement of the President, and where do you see him taking this country in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so I think the President he's been making these statements for a while now. There was a time when he said there was Chisanja Kuna Mchezo, I think after 2016. Then he said there's going to be no jokes. Mchezo is Swahili word for games, no more games. It's time to get serious. Now this time he says no sleep. But if you watched or listened to Obote's independence speech in 1962, he says something like it's a fight against ignorance, poverty, and disease.
Ignorance and disease.
Yeah, he mentioned the three things.
That's actually why he founded the Milton Obote Foundation.
Yes. So you can see that the poverty still has been consistent for the last about 4 years that Uganda has been independent. But yeah, so I think President Museveni is good at sloganeering. Like, he's a master of that. He's a politician who's really good at that. He can coin slogans. He can say these things. He can motivate people. When I meet Kenyans, many times they're like, "You President is such a good speaker," and that's true. But now, I think that the ball is in his court to really transition that into reality. You know, when he talks about fighting corruption, it really needs to go out of his way and do it. Let me give you an example. When Fidel Castro became president after the coup in Cuba, after the revolution in Cuba, one of the things he said is that he's going to be Marxist and he's going to nationalize private assets. And people thought he was joking. People thought it's another guy who will get power and then he will change. What he did was that I think 2 weeks, about 14 days after he became the head of state in Cuba, what he did was that he went to his father's farm and nationalized his father's farm. So when he nationalized his father's farm, people were like, if this guy can nationalize his father's farm, this means that the games are done. So President Museveni has run a cabinet that has had so many ministers and senior government officials accused of so many things, including the Karamoja scandal. Remember the iron sheets, the Karamoja iron sheets. People who have been accused of all sorts of impunity. There's been a lot of corruption in the road areas of construction of roads, areas of education, areas of health. We shall see who he appoints into the cabinet, and that will give us a better view than the rhetoric. Because when he says it's time to fight corruption, well, I could say that. I could say it's time to get serious as a student before I go back to sleep, like I always do. So I hope that it really means it this time. But again, we give it time to see how it goes about it.
All right. That's your view there. Let's go to Leonard Egesa. Egesa, what's your quick thoughts about this statement by President Yoweri Museveni as he begins 5 years in power?
Do you want me to talk about the swearing-in event or just the statements?
We are looking at the statements, basically. The event happened, but we are trying to look at
Toko has prosecuted it very well. President Museveni is an expert in sloganeering. He has even taught our brothers in Noop to also be very good at sloganeering.
You can talk about Museveni without necessarily being in Noop.
They also come up with very nice slogans every election cycle. And I mean, for the political entertainment bit of it, the slogans make a very good entertainment value, but beyond that, there is nothing in it. The time when he said Chisanja Kuna Mchezo, I remember, and there is a guy, an NRM diehard who works on one of the radio stations. He flipped it around. He said, Mchezo Hakuna Chisanja. So he was trying to actually tell them not to sleep on the job. Yeah? When he said it's supposed to be Mchezo Hakuna Chisanja. And if you sleep on the job, we shall not get another term. That's what he was trying to mean. Yeah? And I thought that he was actually capturing the moment. President Museveni saying that Chisanja hakuna mchezo, he was assuming that that very time in which they were in, people are not going to play. But I mean, we know the NRM, they say one thing but do the other thing. I have told you before that there's a time I wrote a paper and I took it to President Museveni's office, and I said, give me 20 names of 10 politicians and 10 technocrats that you are willing to sacrifice. We go hard on them, get them in the coolers, yeah, and then people will know that you are actually serious about the fight against corruption. I was never called to State House again. So that shows you that it is mere rhetoric. President Museveni, beyond sloganeering, when it comes to topics like corruption, beyond sloganeering, there is nothing in them. So he just says these things, to play to the gallery, to appease the foreign delegations that are, coming to Uganda to attend such events. But Ugandans actually know it.
Why then would he pick out those key issues if you say it's sloganeering? One would say it's a focus, because indeed poverty and corruption are major issues in our
Where
country.
I credit President Museveni is on the economic message. Yeah, I think he has been very consistent on the economic message, trying to draw people into the money economy. Yeah, there I credit him. The consistency is quite admirable. That he keeps, going on and on and on and on, and even going to the extent of picking up examples of people who have made it. This one has, started with this number of birds. Now is at this point. Is now bringing in 3 million shillings a day, 6 million shillings a day. Blah blah blah. Yes, that is fine. That is a very good message, and I agree with it as a former member of the Farmers' Party. So, but beyond that, there is nothing in it. And now I want to tell you why there is nothing in it. With the coming into the commercial production stage of oil in Uganda, what is going to happen is that Ugandans are going, the government of Uganda under President Museveni will stop looking at Ugandans as citizens. It is now going to begin looking at them as subjects. That's why I go back to my petty subject of the monarchy. So he's going to treat them as subjects, and that is what constitutes what most people call the oil caste. Because leaders in such countries look at people as subjects. Why? Because with or without your tax revenue, he can still be able to get money to maintain his inner circle in a comfortable position, and to keep the levers of power moving. So that is why they look at people as subjects. Now, as such nations that have fragile governments in terms of democracy, as they go towards commercial oil production, usually what happens is that leaders tend to become more autocratic. They become more autocratic, and that is why you see that oil governments, oil producing nations in Africa, for a long time were associated with, or were synonymous with dictatorship, with military coups like in the 90s, like what you had in Nigeria. We had a lot of military coups. Why? Because of that extra leverage that you get when you have oil going commercial. So for me, that is my worry for the
next
coming
5
term,
years.
because they are saying by the end of 2026 we should be going commercial, oil production. So all these other things talking about agriculture and what have you, they are going to be relegated to the periphery.
All right.
We may not see much.
All right. Let's go to Honorable George Musisi. Honorable George Musisi, we would like to hear your quick thoughts on what President Yoweri Museveni said at the swearing-in ceremony. As NUP, how did you receive that message, and does it reflect well on the next 5 years when he is in charge of this country?
Well, it was more of the same. I remember when the Honorable, who is now Presidential Advisor, JPAM, was running against General Museveni 10 years ago. He asked that, do you want some change, or you want more of the same? And I think it's anyone who has watched any of those state functions, be it independence, be it now the swearing in. First of all, the government, the NM government, after 40 years in power, it's suffering from a lot of fatigue. Institutional fatigue, even individual fatigue. It's even written on the body language of General Museveni. You can see that he's fatigued, he's tired.
we have no expertise on this table to
No, you don't need expertise to see. You just need sight.
conclude that.
Anderson. You just need sight to see.
Well,
Well, for me, I just use my eyes.
I will lend him my.
for you are sick. Your
So,
eyes are sick.
The government that is pretending over is suffering from some systemic challenges that affect its operations. That even if you wanted, for me, I don't even want to go into the details that Leonard is talking about. I don't want to go into those details. The issue is there are some issues that affect all the service delivery, all the good intentions, all the prosperity initiatives that you're bringing. Because the question would be, if you are going to believe the new targets you are setting for yourself, you first have to ask what failed the other targets that you set for yourself. All these things have been yardstick set by himself. Chisanja hakuna mchezo. It was meant to fight corruption 10 years ago. Everyone in Uganda can see whether corruption was fought or not. So whether this government is going to outperform itself, whether all these things that Ms. Samson talks about every so often, middle income status, we are going to see every person earning this, they are affected by the systemic challenges that I've talked about.
There is
like
a tenfold growth coming up.
Well,
Economy must
you
grow
can as well.
tenfold.
The other day he mentioned
And this
that,
year we are supposed to begin with double-digit growth.
well, it sounds good. It sounds good to the ears. You can as well mention the Mbara airport, which is at the center between Brazil and
China. But also when you talked of the middle income status, the neighboring president does not agree. For him, he says, once you are LDC,
Carry on along.
Yes. So, and then one of the things that why I mentioned about institutional and individual fatigue, very many leaders who spend in power a long time, especially after 10, 20, 30 years, they start loving hearing grandiose statements. That's why when many of these people, when they come to Genome 7 and he tells them that we're going to make a vaccine which does this and this, we are going to do this gold refinery, we're going to, now the other day they're saying this airport in Barra, which is, it sounds grandiose, it sounds big, and sounds good to the ears, just like it's affecting our host here, who is regurgitating the same statements. So the question is, what failed the smaller ones? Because, for instance, for poverty alleviation programs, we've had...
I will tell you what kind of speaker you deserve in Parliament to deal with you. Let's continue.
So I think without interrogating all the plans, I don't see any reason why those things would go as planned if you don't address the things which failed the others. Yes. For instance, corruption, which is endemic, which some of us believe is actually one of the reasons why it's a way of holding power. It's a working method in the NRM government. It ironically also affects the same programs that you're talking about. That if you're talking about PDM, which has been a flagship project in the last 5 years, and trillions of money have been sunk in, you look at Auditor General's reports, what they talk about PDM, look at the money sunk in there, and the question is not the numbers that have been affected. The question should be qualitative. Right. What transformation has taken place as a result of those figures?
So for you,
I'm not optimistic at all, and I would be stupid to be optimistic given the past, because one time Honorable Norbert Mao, I think it was in the 8th or 9th Parliament, at the debate for the sale of UCB, said sometimes madness is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
All right. Spectrum Xtra on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll bring in the views of the Honorable Patrick Kichonjo Katabazi. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703-090. Tell us what's your view about what we're discussing here, and the panel will respond to you. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Xtra live on Radio 1 FM 90. We're reviewing the major events of the week. We'll be looking at what the next 5 years means under President Yoweri Museveni. We'll also be looking at the kind of parliament we deserve, having witnessed the conclusion of the swearing in of members of parliament to the 12th parliament earlier today. I have a panel of 4: the Honorable George Musisi, Chira Municipality MP, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform; Mr. Leonard Egesa, political and business strategist; Mr. Godwin Toko, lawyer and civil society activist working with the Agora Center for Research; and the Honorable Patrick Kichonjo Katabazi, Ruchiga County MP, economist, lawyer and member of the National Resistance Movement Party. Well, let's bring in the Honorable Katavazi. You've listened quietly to the submissions of your colleagues, talking about the statements made by President Yoweri Museveni at the swearing-in, sort of also predicting where this country is likely to end in the next 5 years, particularly on two major issues, poverty and corruption. Let's hear your take on this.
I think, Kenneth, I'm the most optimistic person on the panel today. But first and foremost, I want to congratulate the President on her successful swearing-in ceremony after a very successful election, in my view, and my colleagues at NRM for the success that they have registered. I must say that at a personal level, I was inspired by the speech of the President, and like the only point I suppose I agree with Mr. Egesa is that the President has been very consistent on the message of socio-economic transformation and has taken it a notch higher by breaking the tradition and decorum of presenting videos at a high-profile event like that one. We actually thought that these videos and those PowerPoint presentations were for, showcasing development projects, but also for marshalling support. But here we are on a high-profile event, inauguration event, and the guests are being shown videos on how farmers have taken advantage of government programs and they have improved their livelihoods. And I think that consistency is very, very important. So I have seen Museveni over the years, obviously, and I appreciate that he has come from the position of a leader to actually now a position of a teacher, if I read what he's doing right now. And I think at that level, when you demonstrate physically what methodologies are working, what things are generating income, I'm sure people will understand it much better. And I must commend the President and the points that he laid out, the tenfold strategy, which, of course, I know has faced some criticisms here and there. But I think if well implemented, we are likely to get positive strides going forward. My colleagues have talked so much about the issue of corruption, which the President talked about. And he said this time around is going to be serious, more serious than ever before on the question of corruption. But my thinking about corruption has been rather different. You see, Uganda is at the... for me, I think Uganda is at the early stages of state formation. I don't believe that we have developed to that level. We're still at early stages of state formation. And at some point, it is trial and error. And this was the case for countries like Britain in 1700. Shortly after the Industrial Revolution, and how power centers, unions, and many other interests were shaping up to create these countries that we see as great today. Of course, we have jumped some steps because of globalization. We have electricity running. We are also connected within a global economy. But generally, the culture and our socio-economic setup is still far behind some of these countries that we want to benchmark at. So, therefore, my thinking about corruption is that I look at it from a structural point, because the President can say he's very committed to fight against corruption, but this is the President, one person. What about the whole system? And I must commend the President and his government over the years.
One would say after 40 years, the man has been in charge of setting up this system.
Yes, progressively. We are seeing improvement every other day. And yes, I want to give you an example.
Yes.
Previously, we had a government run on cash transactions. So under the public finance management reforms and many reforms that have come into government, now we have a single treasury account payment system where all money goes through one account. I bet if there is an investigation to do with the money stolen or misappropriated from government, by click of a computer, you get where to start from. That was not there. Of course, some would say some of these things have developed.
I wanted to...
No. Let him conclude.
Now, when you look at the anti-corruption agencies, at least we have them. As to whether they are functional or not, that will be a debate.
including the IGG.
Yes, we have the IGG
The
here.
director said that
We now have the
State House and Corruption
the
Unit.
State House and Corruption Unit.
We have Investors Protection Unit.
We have Parliament with functional committees of PAC. All those are systems that are put in place. So now, if the president is saying he's committed to fighting corruption, what about other agencies that are charged with that responsibility? And where are Ugandans in this whole equation? For example, when you go to a local government level, I want to use an example of my district, Ruchiga, which receives about 30 billion.
Ruchiga is now a district.
Yes, Ruchiga is a district,
I thought it was
which
a training
receives,
center.
no, that certainly would be degrading to refer to my mighty district as a trading center.
Even in mine, Busia is a trading center.
So
It's a
Ruchiga
municipality.
No, it's a
has a
trading
budget of about 30 billion every single year. But incidentally, when you go to Ruchiga, they think a member of parliament is the one that has the money for their development. Nobody gets to know or to understand that actually you have 30 billion every single year that is coming to the district. So as we are shouting corruption in Kampala here, outside the town centers, people do not understand this kind of message. So that is why I'm calling it a structural problem that requires concerted efforts from the president, of course, as the chief executive. His commitment is very critical in this. But then also, every single one, every person has a duty to ensure that we fight corruption and collectively. Because if we don't, then the fight will certainly be much longer than we are thinking.
I have only one issue to put to you that some people would say President Yoweri Museveni has been in charge of this system. He appoints almost everyone that is in this government. He has all that power and control. I mean, if you know there's corruption in point A, you sack the people who are there. You don't allow them to continue with the corruption. That's why people are saying probably he's not serious about
so
it.
We have to
He's singing an old
we
song.
have two dimensions of corruption. We have corruption as perception. We also then have corruption as a practice. So it is very important to interrogate these two concepts independently. Because if we don't, some of the things that we perceive to be corruption may actually not be. Now, most cases you look at somebody who has bought a car and you say this man, or you look at somebody who has developed a pot belly like Mr. Igesa, and you say this man, this man has become corrupt. He has even put on corruption.
That's a lifestyle.
A corruption.
Which the president
Yet could be a disease, by the way, because I'm talking about perception now.
And
Yet it could be that somebody's health is possibly failing.
As you can see, Anderson, what I think is, gentlemen, I'm going to bring
Honorable
you.
Kichoncho is being divisive because we are talking about corruption. So he's just saying, oh, there's perception. The president is saying there's real corruption.
No, he's engaging in what we call sophistry.
Yeah.
Sophistry, you use language to deceive.
He's prevaricating.
Yes. So may I have a question for you, Honorable?
Yes, please.
At the start of his sixth term, two of them unelected. In 2012, there was a time when President Museveni was the whistleblower of a major corruption scandal in Uganda. The one involving pension funds, the theft of pension funds.
He was a whistleblower.
Yeah, he was the whistleblower. He actually blew the whistle because that's the one that had Christopher Bay. No, Christopher Bay.
The payment.
Pension funds.
Yes.
From public service.
Services.
So we were told that the chief suspect, Christopher Bay, had amassed close to, they had properties. It was actually carried in, I think, the Independent magazine, that he had amassed properties valued at 800 billion shillings. And he had been at this game for over 12 years when he served in the Ministry of Public Service. So my question to you is, you have told us here that President Museveni's government has been progressively fighting corruption and registering gains. Yes? I want you to tell us how much of that pension money was recovered.
So can I just
So you also had an issue.
Yeah, for
very
me,
quickly
I
before
think
we
that for the anti-corruption agencies to work, they must be allowed to work. You have on record a former IGG called Muriagonja, who said that the corrupt people hide behind the president. But when you go to catch the big fish hide behind the president. That's on record. It's not my words, it's our words. So what I think is Ugandans the president has learned this art of giving Ugandans the perception, which he talked about, of fighting corruption, as opposed to actually going ahead to do it. In a serious country, we don't even need this investor protection unit, state house, all that is hogwash. We would need a thoroughly running IGG's office that can do the work. So, for instance, let me give you an example. This week we wrote to the IGG to ask for declaration of wealth forms of the speaker. 2 years ago, I, myself, and Agora and others, we wrote to the IGG's office, the same office, and said, can we have the declaration of wealth? And that time we even included opposition MPs like Joel Sanyonyi. Said, can we have, because if you make it public, then you get to know someone who said, but Joel says he has only 2 farms, but he bought this other farm the other day. You get it? That's how you fight it. Yeah, so what I see with the president is that he says these things, but those bodies are not actually allowed to go out there and do the actual work of fighting corruption.
Can you have
institutions? Just a minute.
So let's have the honorable
because the institutions don't work fine, it just becomes a rhetoric. It becomes something he says because he knows it's a political selling card that we can't fight corruption.
All right.
Okay, so I think, colleagues, it is very important that we basically focus, and you allow me time to finalize my submission.
Please do.
I really wanted to say that we are a growing country, and we are still at the earliest stages of state formation.
The same as we were with Singapore in 1963.
Let's allow him.
Yes.
Let's allow him.
So,
let's allow him.
Yeah,
as a consequence, there are some challenges that we face, and we do not have immediate solutions. Some we have immediate solutions. Some are structural, and as long as the current structure remains the same, we still struggle.
The structure meaning the president?
The socio-economic.
No.
I want to give an example.
Give it to someone else to try.
As we speak, we have about 8 million people who are in abject poverty.
Yes, 40 years after.
Yes, about 6 of them are staying in urban centers.
Yes.
Now, as you hear talking about corruption,
Yes.
some of the people that we lead, their major problem
It's food.
is possibly something else.
Yes.
Is food.
Medicine.
So we have to address some of these asymmetries so that we elevate almost every Ugandan to the level where they understand the kind of language that we're talking about. You are talking about anti-corruption measures where people have been arrested and the route that has been tagged to them has not been recovered. That is an issue of reform. That's an area, that's still a lacuna in the law and in our policy, where our colonial legal system would provide that for whatever crime you commit, you go to jail.
Instead of doing such laws, why instead of doing the protection of national sovereignty, why don't you do
and
that?
of course, that's a collective responsibility. That's for NUP, that is for NRM, that is for DEEP, because all of us.
Or maybe it's time for NRM to say someone else come and take over and try.
Yeah, and because and of course, you know that we have avenues for private members' bill as in our system.
Maybe the system has
So
failed.
it's a collective responsibility. So I should say it is our duty, all of us. So there are areas where it is working. At least you know that Obey and group were apprehended and they were actually tried. And
them was pardoned.
But later, President Yoweri Museveni.
Pardoned them.
yes, it could have been. Could have been the case. So what he's talking about, I think, is a lacuna in the law that possibly would require some bit of reform.
I don't think it's a lacuna in the law.
And
Honorable, the current laws, if applied, would ensure that we stamp out corruption.
yeah,
Not a lacuna in
so
the law.
there are areas of
I
reform.
think
I also agree.
There are areas.
No, I think he's talking
Let
about
me
a
inform
law
you.
that
Let me inform
enables
you.
seizure of assets
The building
and
where my
recovery.
office
You
sits.
can do it even under the current laws.
Kenneth, let me inform Honorable. The
Very
building
quickly,
where my office
very
sits
quickly.
Yes.
is managed by Knight Frank. Knight Frank also manages properties for the IGG.
Yes.
So I asked them, do you mean IGG has properties? Then they told me the ones recovered from the thief.
Recently, they recovered the one of
Tell me
Kazinga.
which law are they using?
Recently,
No. So what I'm trying to say,
Lacuna in the law.
there are areas where we have areas of
There
reform.
is no will.
There are
to fight
areas of
corruption because it is
implementation.
part of the
There is where we need to actually up the implementation. And there are areas where we simply need structural reform, our socioeconomic setup to grow. And I'm thinking that the message of the president of fighting poverty and corruption are one and the same.
All right, Honorable, can
Because
you conclude your
one
point?
feeds into the other one.
All right, you've concluded your point. Let's go back to the shadow of the NRM, and that's the NUP. NUP,
No,
you've
we're not
been
the shadow
quiet
of the NRM.
for quite some time. We want to hear from
They are
you
rebels
on
of
this
the
particular
NRM,
issue. You've heard, of course, Honorable Patrick Ichoncho has responded to the issues that have been put across. Let's hear from you very quickly.
Well, if you're talking about fighting corruption in this country, I think the NRM government, any person, even a casual observer, would notice that it's performing dismally. If you don't even have to, first of all, from the institutional mechanisms that are in place. We have a very, by the way, strong anti-corruption laws.
Yes.
If implemented, what we lack is the will. And one time, the Honorable Betty Kamia tried to bring something called the lifestyle audit. That lifestyle audit, she was even just bringing her own diction, but it's already provided for in the law. Because the Anti-Corruption Act says if a public servant adopts a lifestyle, for instance, if I see Kenneth, who is ordinarily supposed to be on a salary of 2 million.
I'm not a public servant.
I'm giving an
When we
example.
see you 2 years from now,
I don't know why.
use your example.
I
Pushing
don't
a
know.
Rolls Royce.
Use your example.
Well, I have a coffee farm, but I can sell my coffee like the other person who sold
Who
goats.
sold goats?
Yeah, but I was giving an example that a person who ordinarily, and you drive a car like a Gessas, the owner shifts the burden. Okay, guess I'm the one on the floor. And the burden shifts to you to explain how you got it. Indeed, you can give an explanation.
That
Like
I
I've
gave
said,
it, my father
like-
gave it to me.
yes, exactly. So we have very, very strong laws. We have strong institutions. What has Mr. Museveni done every time he felt like fighting corruption? He creates a different institution. I've run out of count of the institutions that he has set up in his office alone. There's a land something in State House. I think there are about 2.
There are
Land
32. There are
Yes.
32 units.
Yes.
Wow.
32 units.
Yes, conclude your point.
And these are all supposed to be fighting corruption. If you see what either State House or General Nakalema, that State House and corruption, or the land under some soldier, what they're doing is work which could be done by CID.
Yes.
It's work that could be done by the IGG. So the point is, and then once in a while, they throw in an Agnes Nandutu. When you look at the facts, of course, you can debate about the case because.
What do you mean, an Agnes Nandutu? Can you?
She's a convict,
Sacrificial lamb.
and if you look at the circumstances, if you look at the ingredients of the offense with which she was charged, every person who received those earn sheets could be charged with that offense, because she was charged with an offense of just receipt, and where you are in an office where you ordinarily would have no hard knowledge that you are not supposed to receive this, and all people were MPs, most of them were MPs,
Starting
who
with
would
the
have
vice
known.
president.
I've said all of them. I don't want to give names. The list was long. So, you know, there's that question of not kicking a man who's already down. Some of them are already down. We don't need to discuss it. So the point is, was this selective prosecution, and I'm not saying that if you prosecute someone and you're convicted, it's a defense to a crime to say others are not being charged.
No,
It's not. However, selective prosecution is also not justice. Selective application of the law is also not fairness and justice. So the issue is, and then once in a while, as you are telling people, the other day in Chankwanzi, Honorable Katabaz was there, and they're telling them, please, Parliament, please stop corruption, please, I don't want corruption in Parliament. And then you pat them on the back. We say, okay, don't steal, you get this money. And the question is, this money for what? From where? Because the public service, because I'm not talking about civil service, I'm talking about public service, because MPs are a public official. All monies that you receive, that you even reasonably suspect, is suspect already. So the point is, if you look at the times we've had contentious amendments in Parliament, starting from all the way from 2005, the contentious amendment, that is the one they started throwing money to Parliament when they had an amendment. And then it trickles down. You look at the Auditor General's report. You just have to look at the Auditor General's report and see the systemic corruption in almost every institution. One time, Kosas instituted a probe into the Bank of Uganda. One of the institutions we thought were sacrosanct, we thought they were holier than thou. And you remember the road that was uncovered there. So the point is, I don't think that any person can believe that there is a will to fight corruption. And it's just, corruption just changes faces.
All right.
Let me conclude with this. There are some public holes that you can, holes, I'm talking about HOLE, of where they have poured in billions of money.
Yes.
You look at Atiak Sugar Factory.
Kira even.
You look at Day Farmer, and you imagine that for 5 years you are throwing money to this public institution.
Park.
There is not even a single sugar,
That's on the
a kilogram of
market.
sugar that you find on the stalls. So that's another level of siphoning of public resources. How do these people? And then you look at the different tax, even before the 11th Parliament, when Patrick knows the 11th Parliament closed, there are some companies which are brought for waivers. How do the people get waivers? How do some companies get on the list of waivers if not through a competitive process? So the issue is because of the overstay and because of the mode of governance that the NRM has adopted over time, supported by General Museveni, corruption has become a working method that if he decided to seriously fight it, the government would collapse.
Patrick, let's hear from you very quickly. Would you like to respond to some of the issues that your colleagues have put across?
Now, I think I had able discussed the issue of corruption and some visible government interventions that are in place to deal with corruption. But I've again added that some of these are perception, some of these are real concerns because we still have some structural problems which are not yet to go away. But in some cases, we lack implementation. And here, I concluded by saying that the fight against corruption is not a man's job like the president's job. It is a collective responsibility wherever we are. Parliament, for example, is an anti-corruption institution, agency, through its committees of Parliament, PAC, and the rest. So at every level, wherever you are supposed to be doing your job. And that's what I want every Ugandan to basically know. I see Mr. Gesa nodding in disagreement that Parliament is not an anti-corruption
What surprises me
yes.
is you discuss these things as if you have just landed from Mars. Yeah? You see, you want to tell us that when it comes to fighting corruption, it is everyone's responsibility. But then you also don't want to look at the fact that President Museveni has consolidated power in his position, in his person actually, alone. He has castrated Parliament. So you cannot expect a castrated institution. Yeah? Even our next topic, we are going to be discussing the speakership. You can see that the crown prince sits there and says, so and so will be the next speaker. Yeah?
But
then everybody thinks that it is true. I mean,
but
it is
Mr.
the right
Gesa,
thing. So you cannot say it is our responsibility as Ugandans and other institutions to fight corruption, but when it comes to the exercise of power, you take away their power. You cannot take away their power and expect them to use the same power.
You see, Mr. Gesa, I think it is only fair to analyze these power centers individually.
There's only one power center in Uganda.
Power centers, and we discuss them individually. We have had corruption concerns from Parliament itself, from parliamentary committees itself. And the president doesn't sit there. We have had corruption cases at local government. The president doesn't sit there.
That is
there are issues of political economy that are so very important. As the president yourself, as a political actor, as the president of Uganda, and with the interest, your personal interest as the president, interest of the party, how do you deal with the issues? So how do you deal with the issues of leadership?
All right. Gentlemen, we have comments coming in. We have comments coming in from the listener.
So politics and leadership and the political economy issues, they also have their own version of discussion that we may not need to mix into this. What we are dealing with is the president's message.
So very quickly, let me
just tell Honorable, me, I'm not NRM.
Yes.
But if there's one person I believe can do things, it's Museveni has proved
if
that
you
he can.
wanted to remove corruption.
This is a guy who fought HIV in the 80s.
Yes.
In 2000, there was an Ebola crisis in northern Uganda.
Yes.
And this country, this poor country,
Was
poorer
it
by that
85?
time. Wait, poorer by that time.
Even COVID-19.
This guy,
Even at
forget
this
COVID.
age.
Forget COVID.
Even
COVID
at-
was games.
even
Yeah?
at this
This
age.
guy fought HIV. This guy fought the NRA. This guy fought the Holy Spirit with ragtag soldiers.
No, even at
way,
this
way less than what we had right now. Yeah.
But,
if he really wanted to fight corruption, he would fight it. But like George Musisi said, yeah, he became too comfortable. And I think there is some merit in the argument that corruption is now a way of government.
But
there's a
and
committee
even President Museveni himself
there's a
accepts-
committee of parliament.
Do you know what the president has said about this?
Be careful with those corrupt guys. They will take out our money.
Yes.
They are good guys. They say they do
They
something.
invest money,
They
invest
invest
here.
it here.
No, you've
So
missed
that's
another
the problem.
important statement that he has said.
Because
All right, let's listen.
You've missed another important statement.
Are you
that has-
setting him up?
No.
that he has said, Richard,
Let
You
him
have
make
missed
his
one
point.
other important statement, that in the beginning, it was extremely difficult to even touch corrupt people because they were so powerful. So as a political actor at the highest level, the best way to root out corruption in our society is by going systems. Now, the process for systems and reforms has been ongoing for a very long time. What now we need is enhanced political will and ensuring that our policies, our laws are effectively implemented.
And also, by the way, does corruption include nepotism?
I'll read out some comments that are coming in from the listeners. Gentlemen, the statement Uganda is a growing country is useless. Museveni abolished cooperative bank. I'm the union in the claim government can't do business. Just imagine how his brother is able to manage many businesses as an individual and the country fails. Really? That's a comment that comes in from Mawa Amaza, listening in from Moyo. Okaka Sam, listening in from Apache, writing us, good evening, Spectrum Xtra. Jaja Museveni can't fight corruption. I remember when he said he was going to follow the style of Dr. John Pombe Magufuli. I knew it was a joke to please Uganda. Museveni is the main pillar of corruption in Uganda. John Chanja writing and says, good evening, Kenneth. The president should come to Chanja and audit the 20 buildings that have sprung up from 2019 COVID days to now. Owner, source of funds. That's details that he wants. Let President Amin Field Marshal used to decide on his own. President Museveni can't because now he has got a cabinet of 80 plus MPs, 500. To decide, they can't decide for themselves, and they blame Museveni for nothing about corruption. But the leaders are suicide bombers. That is Simon who is listening in from Chireka. We have another comment. Musalongo Andrew Cherero listening in from Ruchiga district. I congratulate Honorable Kichoncho Katabazi Patrick upon being sworn in as an MP for Ruchiga constituency. Him being an economist and lawyer, he will perform parliamentary roles excellently. Corruption has ate up the common Ugandan. Parliament being at the center of this. It's terrible. That's your voter there, Andrew, listening in from Ruchiga district. Matuga, we have a comment from Matuga Luanga Habat. He writes and says, many of our politicians are very skilled at crafting powerful statements, especially during swearing-in ceremonies and campaign periods, promising to address the challenges facing their electorates. Unfortunately, many of these promises never translate into real action. Phrases like Kisanja Hakuna Mchezo and repeated commitments as this term we shall fight corruption often end up being mere political slogans that play on people's minds rather than bringing meaningful change. Lastly, Charles from Moyo writes, good evening, gentlemen. Let's forget about the fight against corruption because Jaja is the patron of corruption in Uganda. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we will shift the gears and look at our second topic of discussion, which is almost linked to where we are. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Xtra, live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. We have just been discussing what the 5 years under President Yoweri Museveni will look like after taking oath for office, promising us to fight corruption and also deal with the problem of poverty. You sent in your views and we thank you, and please do join us again as we continue the discussion, but this time around looking at the kind of parliament that we deserve. I have a panel of four. The Honorable George Musisi, Shira Municipality MP, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party, Mr. Leonard Egesa, political and business strategist, Mr. Godwin Toko, lawyer and civil society activist working with the Agora Center for Research, and the Honorable Patrick Kichoncho Katabazi, Ruchiga County MP, economist and lawyer who comes from the ruling NRM party. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Now let's shift our gear and look at the Parliament. They concluded the swearing in of MPs today, and the first sitting will be on the 25th. The first agenda, going by what happens, will be the election of the Speaker, who then, with the Business Committee, will sit down and decide when the business of the House should formally begin. There's a lot that has been talked about our Parliament, and some people are happy to forget the 11th Parliament. They are welcoming the 12th Parliament. The questions have been, will the members of the 12th Parliament take lessons from the 11th Parliament? There are issues to do with the leadership of Parliament, what kind of leadership, and we know the race is on, and there are so many other things that have been going on. And I want to begin with Godwin Toko, on this particular topic of the kind of Parliament that Uganda deserves. Toko.
Development. So when countries that are serious get in that stage, you see them by the actions, by the kind of leaders they choose. So, for instance, you had Singapore. We always reference Singapore and South Korea because they were relatively close to where Uganda was at the time we got independence.
The Asian Tigers.
Yeah, the Asian Tigers, but particularly those two. So you have Singapore, for instance, where Lee Kuan Yew, who was the leader, decided that to be a leader you have to have had a certain level of education from Harvard, from all these other world universities. It was a huge gamble, but it paid off. You had South Korea, where Park Chung-hee. You know, South Korea was a very interesting case in the 60s, companies like Samsung were selling fish. Now many people have Samsung phones, Samsung fridges, Samsung
Samsung
and everything. Okay, Samsung, even earth movers. So what they did was to get the basics right. That leadership is going to determine a lot of things. If you make leadership become like the end goal, which I think like is now the problem with Uganda, that today, even if you are like the only neurosurgeon in Africa, and you happen to be in Uganda, you're most likely to have a more comfortable life as an MP, in that house, debating with guys, some of whom are senior 6 dropouts, or stopped at senior 6, than performing your profession as a neurosurgeon. Or for documents. So that for me is the crisis that Uganda has right now. People look at parliament as a place to go and make money. People look at parliament as the goal. Yeah, I met someone yesterday, and they won elections recently. Some colleague of mine from Makerere back in the day, and I was telling them that it's going to be a problem for you if this becomes the end, because this parliament has trapped people. People go there with very, very high expectations, and then before you know it, they are quashed. I imagine, for instance, a name mentioned earlier, Agnes Nandutu, mentioned by George. I would imagine that she was probably more comfortable as a journalist in 2020,
the Speaker of the People's Parliament,
yeah, than she became after the 5 years of being a member of parliament and being a minister eventually. So I think the problem, the kind of parliament Uganda would need, is a parliament that, to borrow the words of a very wise man who never means his words, a parliament of Hakuna Mchezo, where you have guys who are very, very serious, guys who know the kind of country they need, guys who know that you don't just approve IMF loans, guys who are talking about the nature of banks we have in this country. Why are the interest rates so high? Guys who are talking about investment. Who is an investor? Where are we going to put our money? Where if they're going to pass a budget, they know that every penny should be accounted for. That this institution last year received this much. The report says that they didn't utilize the money. Why are we giving them more money and all that? Now, the problem though with the parliament also, and blaming it so much, is that many times when you do that, we miss the reality, which is Uganda today. Like someone said earlier, Uganda seems to be getting more and more into a situation where there is a one-man show, where there is a one man who is calling all the shots, where there is a one family who decides the fate of many things in the country. Now, sometimes when families decide the fate of things, it can work out in cases of monarchs, where it's known that families are contested.
The monarchs are constitutionalized.
Whether it's the UK, even the UK, they don't have an absolute monarch. Let's say like whether it's Saudi Arabia, you get it? Where there's a structure that this has been like this for all the years and blah, 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 and all that. Now, what we have here is there is a monarch, but then it seems they want to practice a form of democracy. Then we have a parliament.
It's a pretend democracy.
Yeah, then we have a parliament. Then we have a speaker of parliament. Then the speaker of parliament, someone says, we have decided that's going to be a man because women cannot lead, and it's this man who has been my supporter forever. Now, that kind of confusion is very, very dangerous for a nation like Uganda at this point in time, because you're losing too much time. When parliament sits down and starts passing acts, the one that I referenced the most for me is the Computer Misuse Act, the amendment. You have very young, enterprising Ugandans in their prime years, 25-year-olds, who are locked away. There's a gentleman in a prison farm called Olia Prison in Ajumani, who has been there for the last 2 years. His crime, he organized a mock trial on Twitter of a corrupt person called indignation, and the powers that be, the powerful people at SFC, CMI, ISO, went and picked him from as far as Mbale, brought him to Entebbe using all the state resources, and tried him and convicted him because he had no lawyer. He was all crying and pleading, and they sent him to Olia Prison Farm. He has been there for 2 years out of the 8 years supposed to serve. His only crime being that they say that he disturbed the peace of President Museveni. Now, for me, those are the things that waste everybody's time. Those are the kind of things that shouldn't even be, the laws shouldn't be passing. We should be passing laws now that say, how do we improve our agriculture? Yeah, where do we stand on the question of GMO? Do we want it? Do we not want it? We don't want it. So if you don't want it, how do we ensure that we don't want it? You know, it's weird that nowadays. I mean, I do my personal shopping, and you go to buy tomatoes, and you're in Kalere market, and the man is saying, "Nkweza Kenya, nkweza Uganda." You get like this country used to be the food basket of this region, but now they're asking me whether I should get the tomatoes from Kenya. That even where we have a comparative advantage, be it in agriculture, we cannot fully optimally use that to our own advantage. We should be seeing trucks going the other way with tomatoes, with our kavare and kapchorwa, Irish potatoes that I like so much. They should be going the other way, the cows that but we are passing laws that Parliament is wasting time in everything else except the reality of the average Ugandan. Yeah? So that for me is the problem that we have. Now I'll talk about the Speaker of Parliament. Many times, again, the saying, it's not my saying, it's that everything starts and falls on leadership. You have a parliament, you've got parliaments where the speaker becomes like, uses it to fight personal vendetta, to try to please the head of one arm of government, despite the idea that the parliament should check the executive. I don't expect the parliament to check the executive fully, but then I expect them to do it to a certain extent. You don't have that in Uganda. So I hope that in the 12th parliament, there have been a lot of lessons in the 11th parliament. And I met some people who are very pessimistic, saying that things won't change. I've seen sometimes where things change. There was a lot of corruption in the OPM at some point, a few decades back or a few years back, and it seems like wait. It seems like it's not as obvious as it used to be. But that the Prime Minister spends money to buy themselves a Mercedes-Benz man and welfare relief program in northern Uganda. You get. So I would expect that the lessons of the 11th Parliament, and the failures were many. Sometimes you learn by your failure. When a kid is learning to walk, sometimes when they keep falling, that is a more important lesson than the steps they make. So for me, I hope that the lessons are learned, that you pass laws that are progressive, that are looking forward 100 years. If you mean it that you want this economy to be at the size of United Arab Emirates, which is about $500 billion economy, then you mean it by the nature of laws you pass. You mean it by the nature of policies you pass. You mean it by playing your role as an anti-corruption agency called Parliament. So if if Parliament really rises up to the occasion, everything else will begin to fall in place. And Honorable has been very important, very critical in saying that this has to be all of us. Yes, but leaders take the lead, you get. So that's the thing that for me shocks me the most in Uganda. When it is failure, they're like, oh, all of us are failing. When it's success, oh, we praise the president, he's doing really well. You get. I think it was Bowers, you said that the guy takes all the credit and then spreads the blame to others. So like, they always wanted to make it seem like we are failing together. But when it is success, oh, the NRM will fund the economy at this level. The NRM constitutes the highest majority in that parliament. They are most likely going to determine the speaker. I hope that they can mean what they say when they say it's time to fight corruption, it's time to go for economic development, and with more critical policies. Why don't we have a local bank, for instance? All the circles, when I go to Western Uganda, where my wife comes from, but where does it rank among the banks in Uganda?
It's around number 4.
And the first two, the first two or the first 3 banks in Uganda control about 60%, 70%. So at the end of the day, for me, what I want us to look at are those things, yeah, and overhaul of everything. When we go back to our education, yeah, like there are so many universities in this country. Do we need them? Like, do we need all the people who are coming out saying that they are lawyers? Do we need all of them? Why are we still importing plastic? Why is it that some Chinese man is coming here to make plastic, and yet we can't have technical institutions? And so the Nakao Vocational School, your next goal is to be the one that produces us all the plastic in this country. So that is the task that Parliament has before it. I hope that it can rise up to the occasion, face that task heads on. We are Ugandans. We've fought a lot of things. We are the guys who chased mean, right? One of Africa's worst dictators. We fought HIV in the 80s when no one else was able to do it. We fought Ebola. You know, when Ebola went to Western Uganda recently, it ravaged the entire region. But we fought Ebola in 2002 with much less than those guys had, with much less knowledge, with much less technology. So I always believe that we Ugandans, if we really mean something, we can really get out there and stamp our foot on the ground and get the things done. That is the challenge that I think the 12th Parliament is going to have.
All right. I guess very quickly on the issue of Parliament.
I want to start from, I have opined on this show before that organizations take the character of their CEOs. So Parliament's CEO is the Speaker. So I want to start my submission from that point. I was just checking the online archives, and I discovered that on the 6th of April 2024, I wrote an open letter to the Right Honorable Anita Mo. I will read about 5 sentences from that letter, and then I will just wind up. I said that at the dawn of Saturday, 6th April 2024, I felt strongly that I should write to you because you have risen against all odds through the sheer power of will, shrewdness, and luck to become the 4th most powerful person in Uganda after the trio of generals Museveni, Saleh, and Kainerugaba. While the trio are blood relatives and their power was or is inevitable, yours did not come on a silver platter. I commend you for attaining this feat. It is no mean feat. So, and then as I was concluding at the end, there is a point which it was point number 5. I said, while you have become the 4th most powerful person in Uganda, there once was Amama Mbabazi, who was the 3rd most powerful after the 2 senior Kaguta generals, the siblings. But as he soon found out, the third position was given to him as a poisoned chalice. Today, he is just another senior citizen and retired politician. Things fall apart. Better to trim your pride than to let time and circumstance to cut you down to size. They are cruel. Now, you see, I have been submitting here that President Museveni castrated Parliament. You see, when you get power, at first, after you have attained power, the first thing you think about is, how do I consolidate power so that I can sustain it? So you go into consolidation mode. Now, what are the trade-offs in consolidation of power? Is crushing alternative centers of power is one of those trade-offs. Yeah, even if you mean well, as long as you want to stay in power longer, you will have to crush alternative centers of power. So it is inevitable for a person who wants to stay long in power to become an autocrat. It's inevitable. You have to become an autocrat. Now, I avoid using the word dictator because I think it's mostly used as a misnomer. But you become an autocrat because that's the only way you will stay in power. You cannot be becoming more popular as time goes by. As George submitted here, no, I should mention honorable. Yeah, as he submitted earlier before. When you stay in power, you find yourself with a lot of contradictions. You start contradicting your earlier stances. You start actually undoing some of your achievements and stuff like that. So, as Museveni has stayed in power for so long, he has had to kill. I am using the word kill deliberately. All other institutions where the Constitution had placed power or a semblance of power. So Parliament was one such institution where power was placed. So a certain power that belongs to the citizens of Uganda was domiciled in the institution of Parliament. But he has completely crushed it. Now it looks like it's an appendage of the Museveni family. That is why you see that the word of the Crown Prince seems like the vote on the speakership has already been taken. The public sentiment is that now the Right Honourable Anita Among is out. and now people are saying Oboth should actually go and iron his suit. Yeah? You see, so that means that we are not in a functional democracy. We are in a pretend democracy. You said I should stop using a quasi-democratic facade, and I have obliged. I'm now calling it a pretend democracy. So what we have is a monarchy disguising as a pretend democracy. So you cannot have functional institutions. So when you ask me, what do we expect from the coming parliament, I have already killed that question. I have told you we don't have functional institutions. Parliament as it is today is just another employment agency, a government employment agency, like you would see Equal Opportunities Commission, whose outcome, whose impact on our society we do not see. So it is good that Parliament has given jobs to some of our brothers and sisters, but it does not have impact on the national psyche. It does not have impact on the national economy. It does not have impact on the socio-economic progress of the Ugandan people. So what I'm saying is I cannot pretend to sit here and say...
Ronald, how does an agency which creates employment fail to have an
it gives livelihood
on the economy?
Not all that. Not all employment is productive in the economy. In economics, we have what we call disguised unemployment, underemployment, all these kind of things. But you earn. Okay, good enough. When you earn, you want your point. Yeah, good enough. When you earn money, you will go and spend, and of course, you keep the economy running.
All right.
Yeah, fine.
Let's move on to.
So the point is, for me, I don't expect anything more from Parliament as long as President Museveni is still in power. And what we are seeing from the Crown Prince that is lying in the wings is not giving us any hope that Parliament will reclaim its glory. In fact, for him, he's even on record having said Parliament is a bunch of clowns.
Yes.
Yeah? He said he would arrest all of them. So, from where I sit as a Ugandan, Parliament will not have impact as long as President Museveni is still on his project of building a monarchy. So if we somehow, by whatever means, we end up with another president outside the Museveni family, perhaps we can revisit the conversation.
All right, let's go to Honorable George Musisi. Honorable Musisi, your take on this issue. This is the institution where you're going to be serving for the next 5 years. As you take the first step into that particular house, what should we expect from you? But also you have a very important issue of choosing who your leaders are during the first sitting, which will be on the 25th of this month.
Well, first of all, I don't want to sound as pessimistic as Ronald. I want to look at it in a broader context. First of all, Parliament is a political institution. Secondly, Parliament is a constitutional institution. Thirdly, in any liberation struggle or in any country which is having democratic struggles, and I'm using my words very carefully to not to fall for the or in countries with fragile democracies like we're having, which is almost bordering on a military. I don't want to call it a monarchy. No, I think it's bordering on a military rule, because military rule countries, it's where power derives from the military. Countries where power derives from the military. There will always be struggles, these contestations between democratic forces and those who want to assume power in one center. So, if you look at our politics, having drawn that Parliament is a political institution, and certainly it will be affected by the politics outside it. Our Parliament has been a reflection of the politics going on and our democratic and governing struggles that have, of course, degenerated over time. If you look at it from the sense of, for instance, the levels of tolerance, the levels of freedom of expression, the levels of civic competence, the levels of civil rights and liberties, even outside Parliament, they have degenerated. My brother, Godwin, works with a civil society organization whose accounts are frozen. I don't know that its license is frozen. I think the only civil society outfit now that makes some noise about civil rights is the Uganda Law Society. And it's only doing that because of its statutory. Maybe if it was a civil society, it would have been had its accounts frozen and license withdrawn. So Parliament has certainly fallen victim. If the president is in exile, Parliament is certainly a victim of the political misgovernance and degeneration of democracy. Does it mean that it's useless? No. Just like you'd find that I don't think because Toko is in Agora, and we have seen a reduction of the number of civil rights activists speaking out, it means Toko should keep quiet because civil society is dead. I think that as long as there's any one voice. So that's why I started from the point that I don't sound as pessimistic as I guess that even the 11th Parliament, with all its challenges and all its problems, there are people who, and there are issues, even what not on the floor, but even issues that have contributed to our democratic struggles. Because I look at it as a democratic space is fought for. This is a struggle for forces for democracy and those against it, those who want to assume power in a controlled military environment. And that's the struggles we are fighting for. So I don't want to sound like Leonard who says, this is dead, then what? Should we wait for fate? Or should we go fasting? Should we go? So what should we do? I think that every democracy-seeking voice, including Leonard, you use whatever space outside in Parliament and whatever space you can to ensure that you advance the cause, including the microphone that we're using here. The media has its challenges in Uganda today. We know that the freedom of expression and the media has almost trickled. But then there are all those voices which are struggling. Anderson, you're among them. Fortunately, you've not stopped some of us from coming. So, I don't know for how long. So the issue is that as long as there's a single person who is still agitating for what is right, it would be a step in the right direction. Secondly, for some of us who believe, it even comes many times when they say, why do you go to the judiciary which is dead, like some people say? Why do you take courts to court? Cases to court when you know you're predictable. And I always tell people that I've been in a lot of public interest litigation. Godwin knows that. Sometimes we even go to public interest cases not to win the case, sometimes for purpose of setting the record straight, sometimes for purpose of documentation, sometimes it's for purpose of future jurisprudence. So the question would be, if I have not taken a grievance to court, what have I done about it? Have I decided to pray? Have I decided to go to the shrine to handle it?
Just fold my hands.
Or just fold my hands and wait for the nation. So for me, I think that democracy is fought for, and we should use whatever space to fight for it. Then second, on the issue of the leadership, I want to agree with Mr. Gesa that indeed the quotation that I wrote here, that organizations take the character of their leaders. I know that leadership is key in every institution, and I know that the leadership of parliament is even so key because the speaker and the deputy speaker are put in such a privileged position. They're the custodians of the rules of parliament. They're the custodians. They set the tone. In fact, in a matter which reached the Constitutional Court interpretation regarding the conduct of a deputy speaker in this outgoing parliament, that's the case of Honorable Zake versus Attorney General, where he was chased from being a commissioner. The lead judge there, Justice Bamgemerere, said a speaker is in a position of a judge, a judicial officer. You're supposed to be fair. You're supposed to listen. Even if you are coming, never mind that we're in a multi-party dispensation, but a Commonwealth speaker should not be, when they sit in the chair of a speaker, he should not be seen as a party functionary. We don't need an NUP speaker or an NRM speaker in that house. We need the speaker of the house who is fair, who is impartial. And you may even be partial, but the point is, let you observe the rules. That is the very basic, both the national laws and the rules of parliament. And I think that is the kind of speaker we want. We don't need someone who is going to the other day, Honorable Senyo was reminding them during the passing of the Protection of Sovereignty Bill that, yes, the majority may have their say eventually when it comes to a vote, but the minority should also be heard. We've had sometimes problems where the rules require that if a speaker makes a ruling, they should give a reason and the court even cite the provision from which that ruling emanates from, where sometimes there are no rulings on points raised, where sometimes rulings are made which seems to be uprooted from wherever. So the issue is we just need a person, and I'm mindful that our politics outside parliament has also degenerated. I'm not going to be very optimistic to say that we're going to get a speaker like we had WAPA. So, because, many times we have this, that we know the 6th parliament did that, the 7th parliament did this. No, the politics was better than it is now. Yes. The levels of tolerance were better than they were now. The other day, I think it was either the 10th parliament, where the Honorable Kadaga, who was presiding, asked that the First Lady, in her capacity as a minister, should come and on the floor, demanded that she should come next week and present this. Then we fast forward to the 11th Parliament, where the First Lady doesn't even have to come to the appointments committee. The appointments committee just so
they interact with the papers.
The levels of tolerance outside Parliament have degenerated, and as a political institution, without doubt, Parliament has been affected.
All right, Spectrum X on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll bring in the Honorable Patrick Chichoncho Katabazi, but also look at some of the comments that you've continued to send from the time we started this discussion. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Spectrum Extra continues after. Well, we're glad that you're still with us on Spectrum Extra live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing major events of the week. A panel of 4 here in studio, which includes the Honorable George Musisi, Kira Municipality MP, lawyer and member of the National Unity Platform Party, Mr. Donald Egesa, political and business strategist, Mr. Godwin Toko, lawyer and civil society activist working with the Agora Center for Research, and the Honorable Patrick Chichoncho Katabazi, Ruchinga County MP, economist, lawyer from the ruling National Resistance Movement Party. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago. Your host, keep your comments coming by the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Before we went for a break, we were dealing with the issue of the 12th Parliament. What kind of Parliament do we deserve as a country? But also looking at the leadership of this particular institution in light of the information that has been, moving around since yesterday, that there's a possibility the current leadership might be, removed from office. Honorable Patrick Chichoncho Katabazi, your quick thoughts. This is a house where you're going to be working for the next 5 years, just like the Honorable George Musisi. Let's hear your quick thoughts on what we should expect.
Thank you, Kenneth. And like you indicated at the beginning of this segment, you indeed said that about 527 members of parliament are sworn in and they are officially members of parliament. And that figure includes me representing Ruchiga. And I want to thank the people of Ruchiga for trusting me with their votes. And I also want to congratulate my land colleague, Honorable Musisi, for also successfully taking oath as a member of parliament for Chira municipality. Now, I have heard what my colleague on the panel, Mr. Toko, said, and I must say that he has quite high expectations of parliament, and also Mr. Egesa on what the criticism that he leveled against parliament and the leadership generally. And I want to say that the parliament that we have, or that Ugandans will ever have, or any other country, comes from the people, both quality-wise and quantity-wise.
I don't agree. Not quantity-wise.
For example, now,
Go ahead.
of course, you know the quantity has an effect on the quality as well. So the two go hand in hand. So Godwin, I think you need to, Kenneth, you need to protect me
I
from.
need to chain his mouth.
Yes,
No,
because,
afterwards.
because I think it's, when he was speaking,
You
he
are
was,
protected, Honorable. Please continue.
So we have, for example, fast forward, we have 27% of our people are still in multidimensional poverty, and they are constrained in accessing education, health services, and many other services in this country. We have over 40% of our people who are outside the money economy, and we have about 12 million people in Uganda who cannot ably read and write. That's really about 26% of the literacy rate that we have in this country. And we have about, the study that was done in 2021 about the success and the deficiency in the UPA system, where about 40% of the learners had deficiencies or had proficiency problems in reading and writing. So this is these are the people from which we have elected this parliament. So I'm trying to actually paint a picture here that whereas it is very important to be optimistic, and I'm a very optimistic person, we have to be very mindful of some of the constraints that we have. First of all, we are going to be having a very large parliament, and the quality of debating would definitely be significantly affected, because think about a debate of 527 people, 29 people. If each member of parliament was to be given 5 minutes, those are how many years before we actually hear from the last person. So we have to be very mindful that there will be those constraints. And then the systems within which parliament works certainly need to be improved so that the committees are functional very well, so that if I don't get talking time on the floor of the House, I will certainly participate actively within other parliamentary systems like the committees and many other forums that can possibly translate into effective legislation. That said, it is very important for our listeners to understand that despite what has been talked about Parliament can still be an effective vehicle for socio-economic transformation through appropriate legislation, appropriation, and oversight. And I still insist that if Parliament is used well, first of all by we members who are going to be part of this Parliament, and the other stakeholders, I think Parliament can contribute significantly to the development of this country, because you have heard it is an interim, it's the one that approves all these projects and financing for everything that happens in this country. It's the one that is responsible for oversight, sometimes not very effective, because you just have one parliament, and to oversee everything that is happening in this country sometimes becomes very problematic. It is an anti-corruption agency like we've talked about. So there's a lot of potential for parliament to, in my view, contribute to development of this country in so many ways. Some of my colleagues here want us to look at politics as casually, I should say. Why do I say this? When we start criticizing how parties choose their speakers and leaders, we are entitled as citizens, but we also must understand that when you have passed through a successful election, like the NRM party has in this particular case, the party and the leaders of this party then have a mandate to choose the leadership of parliament. And that is, I think, for us where we have a problem. I often hear people saying, okay, you have gone to Changwanzi, you are going to be fixed, you are going to be indoctrinated, that if they say vote this other person, that's what you are going to do without even questioning anything. But we all know that's how possibly multi-party politics works. That if I have campaigned on a party platform, I campaigned on NRM party platform, I campaigned alongside the president. He became the president, I became the member of parliament. We all had one manifesto. So if the president and the chairman of the party called me or called us collectively and says, you know what, for our manifesto to be implemented very well, for us to have a successful 5-year term, my thinking as a vision bearer for this party, my thinking is that Mr. Ronald Egesa should be the Speaker of Parliament. It is a suggestion or proposition that I am inclined to give a thought. Because we are looking at this as a party. Of course, I know there will be,
Has it ever been defined?
That the son, the daughter, the grandfather, and that's what people talk about. I know all that fits into that dimension. But then ultimately, majority of us who are in this particular group, and possibly who would be in other groups, some of the decisions that we make should be understood and should be analyzed within their proper context. Because if we do not, then we start thinking that the fact that NRM won elections and has a majority members of parliament, that is inconsequential, that people should be looking at things the way they want. So, I'm very optimistic, yet again, that the NRM party, with the guidance of our chairman and president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, shall identify somebody who's going to be the speaker for the 12th parliament. And when they do so, and process the same names through established structures of NRM, SEC and then to the caucus, the 12th parliament shall have a speaker. And of course, our hope, your hope and mine should be the speaker that we shall have should be that speaker that will be part of the story of a positive change in the parliament that each of the Ugandan aspires.
Of
course,
let him conclude this point.
Of course, I am saying this as a newcomer to parliament. I have not been in parliament. I do not want to answer any question regarding how things have been.
I just want to give you information.
Let him conclude. I'll give you an opportunity.
But my thinking, whichever processes that are here, formal and informal, as long as they stream through the established structures and because I will have a say, who becomes the speaker, because I will be participating in a caucus, and we shall debate this, and we shall take a vote. And ultimately, the person that we will have chosen through the NRM caucus shall be the person that will be inclined to vote on 25th of this month. So some of these are political processes that can be well understood within the political context of multi-party politics. Of course, I know some would want to have it the other way, but I'm quite sure that my land friend George Musisi, in Nope, they would also have had a similar. They also have.
No, they already did it with the election management committee.
No, the lead of opposition. The lead of opposition. They also have so many people
guided democracy
who want. They also have their people complaining that they have been left out here and there. So we are all human beings, and we have so many interests at play in this particular question. But there are those interests that are so personal. So I would want to be the speaker, come rain and shine. But there are people who are saying, okay, yes, you might want to be the speaker, but as a party, we also think this one can be a better speaker. So if my feelings have been hurt because what has been decided is against my personal interest, it creates some little bit of comfort. And that happens in DP, that happens in FDC, that happened in UP, still that happens in NRM. But for me, and concluding on this matter before I ask you a question, is that the anticipation, the outcome of this process we are talking about, which might actually start as informal, should take us through a process that will give us a credible speaker for the 12th parliament who shall lead this institution to the betterment of each and every Ugandan.
All right.
Okay.
Let's now open this discussion, and I want to begin with you, Toko, on this one very quickly.
I wanted to give him information.
You will give him information. I'm going to come to you. Well,
Okay.
Let's begin with you, Toko. Toko, very quickly. What do we know as of now What have you heard about the race for the speakership?
I think what you know is what everybody knows.
No, not everybody.
That there was a meeting in State House yesterday.
There's somebody who's probably in this country after a week or so, and they are listening to this issue for the first time.
So what I know and what has been going around, which is now public information, is that there was a meeting in State House yesterday, and for some reason there was the Speaker of the 11th Parliament and the Speaker of the 10th Parliament and other people in that meeting, and it is said that the meeting resolved that the Speaker of the 11th Parliament shall henceforth be the outgoing Speaker and not the Speaker of the 12th Parliament, which she had already geared up for. Because, first of all, there are two things. One, like I said earlier, what having informally before the discussion, that the 12th Parliament is going to have one of the lowest attrition rates, meaning that the number of MPs who did not make it back. Normally, it's about 70% of MPs don't go back to Parliament. For this particular Parliament, it was about 40% only that didn't make it back. So those who read the political leaves were saying that someone was really preparing, that they made sure that so many MPs who are known to them and loyal to them went back to Parliament to vote for them. That's one. Two, the other thing we know is that the Patriotic League of Uganda, PLU, which I think is an illegal outfit, but we can have that discussion another day, says they withdrew their endorsement of the Speaker of the 11th Parliament for the 12th Parliament speakership. Now, critically,
you can mention names.
Critically, that happened just a day before the Speaker of the 11th Parliament went to take her oath of office as a member of Parliament for Bukedea District, woman MP, being Anita Mongo. Now, what I gather is that these things were not isolated. The decision was taken the day before because they wanted to drag the carpet off her feet. That was said that she had organized a procession of about 200 MPs to escort her, and these guys were running ahead of her.
It was called MP Elect Dinner.
They were running ahead of her. The latest I have heard now is that there was a dinner where all MPs. No, forget the dinner. There was they were going to escort her in a procession to the Parliament to take the oath. The dinner was supposed to be tomorrow, and I'm hearing that dinner too has been cancelled.
I have seen a notification here which is saying that the Speaker's dinner, which was due to take place tomorrow, has been cancelled. But I also am asking myself, who is the Speaker? Because we no longer have Parliament.
Yeah, I mean, when they're saying Speaker, they mean the 11th Parliament.
The outgoing Speaker.
Yes.
Okay.
So, long and short of it is that there's been a seismic shift in the politics of Parliament, and who is going to be the leader of Parliament. Also you can look at the First Sun Street. This morning he's been tweeting how he has endorsed Oboth, who is the current defense minister, the outgoing minister for defense. But remember that Oboth expressed interest in being a deputy speaker.
The man who processed the Tojikwata call.
Yes, the guy processed. He
was the chairperson of the Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee.
Yes, but before that, he expressed interest in being the deputy speaker of the 11th Parliament. Then he was not given that.
We were actually told he was the choice of President Yoweri Museveni after the demise of Jacob Olanya.
I don't think we know who President Museveni's choice is, because President Museveni, unlike most of these other politicians, I mean, there's a video circulating right now of the 11th Parliament Speaker saying that I'm going to be in this seat for 10 years, and then there's deputy speaker, and then 10 years. Now it's ironic that she served as the shortest serving Speaker of Parliament, and she's likely to serve as the shortest serving Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, with the exception of Olanya, who died a few months into the office. So basically, what we are seeing is that there are, and we have reason to believe that these are not rumors. It seems like there's real reason to believe now that Anita Mong, her goose is cooked. Or it could be said that it has to do with her what people are calling her spending of money, blah blah blah. Parliamentary money. Agora, where I work, has exposed a lot of irregular, at least questionable, expenditure of money under the dashboard. And Mong, today I just made a tweet which showed that around July last year, I think it must have been 27th or 21st of July last year, as much as close to it was actually 4.19 billion. That is 4,190 million was withdrawn by the people like Chris Obore, people like Okema Leonard. People are very close to the Speaker. Now, when you interrogate the circumstances of that time, was that was the thick of the SEC election. Which SEC election last year, we had Tayewa coming on TV and saying that we have never seen money changing hands like this. It's just been a lot of money.
That is a cardinal sin that Anita Mong committed.
I don't know if that's a cardinal sin. Yeah. Basically, for me, I would say that her cardinal sins are probably about three. One, that she had a lot of this money and she was spending it so lavishly. I think there's an unwritten rule in the NRM that you can have so much money from this, but make sure that it's not it's not known. We've lived all our lives in this country with people who are called very corrupt leaders. We don't even know what their houses look like.
All right.
You could go. Yeah, so basically, the other thing is that I think she became too powerful, and there was this fear that maybe she could cause an upset at some point. Finally,
political tsunami.
I think Toko needs an hour.
Let him
complete. My favorite subject.
Toko represents.
This subject I can talk of. No, I'm not a hater. On this subject I can talk of my shirt and then. But finally,
I need to give him a monologue.
I think finally, what would be her cardinal sin? In this case, it's not a cardinal sin because she didn't commit it. Is that look at her like. Her father wasn't in Fonasa, her grandfather wasn't in Fonasa. She just happened to be her. You get it? So I think those three things conspired against her. And I think her political goose is cooked.
All right. There are certain things that you've said, people withdrawing money in cash and so forth.
No.
I have no proof on this table.
Yeah, but I have the proof of my Twitter. If you I can share it with you.
So those are your honor. Whatever. Let's go to Leonard. Okay, Leonard.
Anita Mong is not the most corrupt person in Uganda's history, other than is not.
It's possible.
She's not. No, she's not anywhere close.
I think it's possible.
Yeah, what I'm saying, I'm stating because I've looked at the numbers before coming to this show.
Yes.
The money blown by General Kale Kaihura when he was at the helm of police, is in the stratosphere. You cannot compare with the money Anita Mong has been playing with in Parliament.
He didn't buy Rolls Royce, though.
Yeah, the only difference is that maybe you see Kaihura was not interested in showing off.
We have no information on
I
this
have
table.
looked at the numbers before coming to this show.
Blew a certain amount of money.
And I was one of the people who wrote open letters to General Kale Kaihura when he was IGP, calling for his resignation and even informing him, just like I informed Anita Mong 2 years ago. I informed him.
What do you know?
So what I'm telling you, Anita Mong is not the most corrupt person. What Anita Mong did was to try to be a mini Museveni, and that is a sacrilegious sin in the Museveni regime. She tried to mimic President Museveni. The only other person who committed that sin is Professor Gilbert Bukenya. And I can see the Right Honorable Anita Mong, unless she's handled by very sophisticated guys, I don't see her, in the next few days, walking a different path from the one walked by Professor Gilbert Bukenya. So you see, Anita Mong amassed wealth through official budgeted corruption and other means, which could actually also be questioned. But now here is the contradiction. The same people who we are told were present in State House yesterday, from police, from other investigation agencies, to pin her before the president and the religious leaders. The President Museveni is a very dangerous politician. Even brought the chairman of the Episcopal Conference to crush all her defenses because he knew that she's likely to go and mobilize the Catholic Church to lobby for her. So he crushed that defense and invited the chairman of the Episcopal Conference in the meeting, as it is reported in the media. So what happens? In 2024, when you ran the parliamentary exhibition, I helped one of the guys you are running the parliamentary exhibition with to write a letter to CID detailing all the amounts that you had put out there in the open with proof. CID did not open a general inquiry file as they normally do. So what happened? They turned a blind eye. Why? Because at that time, Anita Mong played clever politics. She appeared with President Museveni and claimed that she believes in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And indeed, she knelt down before the president and said the president will protect her. Now, a time has come when her political usefulness to President Museveni's project and the transition is deemed to be of no political value, so they have decided to discard her. As Dr. Besigye said, as long as you're not a member of the Museveni family, you will be used as a pawn and you will be dumped when the time is right. So Anita Mong it is time for them to dump her. So now they are weaponizing corruption, which they turned into a blind eye. In fact, in the wake of the parliamentary exhibition, President Museveni even went to Bukedea and launched the developments there, the hospital where the wards are named after family members of the president. So corruption here, like the debate we had at the beginning, but President Museveni uses corruption when it conveniently suits him, he will come out as a whistleblower, as a fighter in chief of corruption. So he's now weaponizing corruption to finish Anita Among politically, just like he weaponized it to finish Gilbert Bukenya politically. So Gilbert Bukenya is a non-entity today because he did not understand Museveni politics. Anita Among has walked down the same route. Now, Anita Among has two options: to take on Museveni head-on and either die or survive politically, or be eaten like a samosa.
All right. Honorable Judge Musisi, you'll be the people making the decision on who should lead you. What do we know so far? Somebody is sending me a message here saying, ask my MP from Chira, do they have a candidate for the position of Speaker?
But he said he's the one.
I did say that.
It was a jest.
You know, the last time the MP for Chira stood for Speaker, he got 15 votes. So I don't. But on a more serious note, first of all, I want to begin from where Honorable Patrick said that every party, yes, ideally every party can organize itself internally. Every party is free, and it's in order for a party to seek to control the leadership, especially where it feels it maybe has the numbers or otherwise.
Yes.
The question, and there would be nothing wrong with NRM seeking to have a candidate for Speaker or otherwise. The only irregularity about it is that you are having a Chief of Defense Forces seeming to say, I'm appointing or I'm endorsing something which is unconstitutional, something which is wrong for a member of the armed forces, let alone a chief or the commander, to be engaging in partisan politics. So it seems that the NRM, they are being shepherded into it's not an internal process of NRM, it's an external process where NRM people are being told. Because a few weeks ago we've been seeing endorsements, video endorsements of MPs endorsing AAA. So these contestations happened, and the clouds seem to be gathering around the Right Honorable Anita, that maybe she has fallen out of favor for one reason or the other. For whatever reasons, I don't think that it's always about corruption, and this has nothing to do with her practices that are well documented. We know that all those practices, or alleged, have taken place under the nose. In fact, I know that in one of the SEC meetings, the former SEC, not the recently constituted one, the Honorable Kadaga was calling for the impeachment of the Speaker then, and Mr. Museveni said, no, we cannot sacrifice this lady now. The whites are... So it seems people just need to appreciate that there is no person in this country. It's always the story of the sun and the moon.
Or the egg and the chicken.
My colleague today, Benjamin Kandna, talked about the story of, remember the story of the cock, which used to say that my rooster has fire? That until the animals touched it and they realized that there's no fire. So every person has that illuminary power. They tend to forget that power is reflected. It's reflected everywhere in NRM. The power is reflected. It happened to JPAM, it happened to KK. And when the rug is pulled under your feet, that's when you realize that all these praise singers, you're standing on quicksand. Geno Kayihura lost a parent. I think either one of the parents was buried in Fort Portal at a time when he was still facing charges before the court martial. Police was represented by an RPC. If General Kayihura had lost the parent when he was still the IGP, I'm sure even the vice president would have attended. True. So I'm trying to show that, and there are two dinners happened this weekend if you want to see. There was one of the Honorable Anita, I don't know if it's cancelled or not, and there's one of the Honorable Bothoboy. Just watch the attendance in Mukono of Honorable Bothoboy.
Like the attendance on the run.
All right. Let's go now to Honorable Kichoncho Katabazi. Very quickly, Kichoncho Katabazi, your issue on this issue of the speakership race. Very quickly, we'll have the final say because we're also coming to the end of this show. Just in a few minutes, 1 minute in fact.
You know, I'm unlucky that I'm speaking at the end because I will have limited time. But mine is very simple.
You had actually talked about the speaker's race in the earlier.
I didn't talk it in the perspective of.
Please do now, very quickly.
A guesser who was condemning somebody who has no right to be heard on this show. But I want to speak from a more organizational point of view, and maybe to echo what you said, I had indicated earlier on, that social media is awash with news of changes that some people have suggested. But me as an NRM member of Parliament, I am aware that the Central Executive Committee of NRM did make a proposal to retain Honorable Anita Mong and the Right Honorable Taiba Thomas as Speaker and Deputy Speaker respectively. And before I see any other resolution from SEC, I don't have any reason to believe that there is any change at this point. And I know when that change happens, a communication is going to be sent. The parliamentary caucus, the NRM caucus, shall be informed, and we shall take decisions at that stage.
All right.
Those who are making comments, some of you say you know them. They are this. Some of them are classified as army people and things like that. You see, the social media, and I'm not offending anybody here, but when somebody is tweeting on social media, you cannot tell. Unless somebody is tweeting and accompanying that with an official statement that is verifiable, in my view, that remains speculative. But what I know for sure is that NRM is going to front candidates for position of Speaker and Deputy Speaker, and that we shall have the best speakers and Deputy Speaker for the season.
All right. With that, we come to the end of Spectrum. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for creating time to be here. And thank you very much, dear listener, for tuning in. From me and the team here in studio, we wish you a fabulous weekend, but stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90, because great songs and great memories will continue after the BBC News.